All right, everybody. Welcome to 2024. This is another great year. Kicking off boss talks for this year with yet another boss. And in this sense, it's in two ways. It's both that he is a boss, like he's a pretty cool guy doing some pretty cool things, but he also works for a company called Nurture Boss. And I'm talking about Jacob Carter. He is the CEO and founder of Nurture Boss. And I honestly think in the future, at some point, I really hope, it just makes sense. Our names should coexist in some way or another when it comes to our products. If it happens, great. If not, we'll still plug Nurture Boss for sure. But nonetheless, Jacob, he's been in this industry for a little while now, mainly in the role of CEO of Nurture Boss and providing some great tech solutions and helping you get more leases. And he'll get into that, obviously. And we all know getting a lease is one of the most important things that this industry can do and needs is more people in those apartments. And so they help make that process easier and better for you. So check them out. But before we get to Jacob, I'm your host, Evan Happel. I'm with Community Boss. I'm the director of marketing, and we have a great solution also in the tech space to help you manage the physical spaces of your community, whether that's your parking, your amenities, or mapping. We can even generate some great revenue, improve your NOI, or just value of your community, and in general, make it a better experience for your residents in using the place they live. So if you have any questions, let me know. But today, we're bringing Jacob to the show. Jacob, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Excited to be here. I feel special. I'm thinking first guest of 2024, so
Absolutely.
big deal.
Yes, we're kicking it off with a boss times two. I feel like it's like a exponential boss, right?
Yeah, boss
We
squared,
can add it in boss squared. There we go.
I love it.
Yeah, thanks for being here. And honestly, I got to meet, I think it was your sister quite a few years ago at NAA initially in 2022, 21 maybe. And just learning about your guys' company and things like that and the things you're doing. I think it's great. I think you have some great tech. So thanks again for being here.
Yeah. Jessica, she's leads our sales and customer success efforts at Nurture Boss.
Right. It's a family affair over there. You guys are killing it over there. Yeah, she's great too. She really has, wasn't a part of the industry either previously, but has really jumped in herself. And like, I don't know, it just seems like a lot of people know who she is. So that's really cool.
Yeah.
You guys have had that kind of success.
Yeah. Cubed, I guess.
Exactly. Boss cubed. Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, Jacob, I don't know if you know, but I always start off the show with a few questions. I like to just make it a little lighthearted and kick it off with some things to just make it, an experience for everyone. So,
sure.
Plus, it's just my show. So, anyways,
you can do whatever you want.
I can do what I want. But the first question I like to ask is, when it comes to building community in the more social sense, how do you go about that in your personal and or professional life? And that can look however you want it to look.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I think that right or wrong, building community for me in my personal and professional life work the same. And I think the best way to build community is to focus on what you can add to the equation, not what you can get from it, right? So whether it's personal or professional, I'm trying to provide value and add value, be of service whenever, however, and wherever I can. And I think it's kind of a catch-22. By being altruistic or as selfless as you can, you get more in return. So there's that, lifelong question. Is it really selfless, or deep down, are you doing it to get something? I don't know the answer to that. But what I do know is that when I focus more on giving than getting, I feel more fulfilled in my life, and I see better personal results and professional results as well.
Yeah, no, I think I think that's a really good approach. I tend to agree. Like some people are like, why are you giving that away? Or why aren't you charging for XYZ? And it's like, well, because why do I need to? Whether it's your advice or your expertise, like if it was something that I was living off of, I guess that'd be one thing. But
Sure.
for me, it's like if you have something to share other people that's going to make their life better, they're going to only appreciate it, right? So why not share it?
Yeah,
Builds
I'm with you.
relationships, allows for deeper relationships that benefit everybody. So no,
Yeah,
it's great.
absolutely.
All right, thanks for answering. And then second question, when it comes to building a sense of hospitality and having somebody over for a meal, what is it that you would do to make them feel special in the form of providing food for them? What would you make them?
Okay, that's really specific. I think going in line with the answer to my first question is I'd want to make them what they would enjoy most. So hopefully
Okay.
I've done a little research prior and can accommodate whatever their taste buds desire, I guess. But to give you another answer, let's say I didn't know or they weren't able to let me know what they wanted. I'm a big like steak and potatoes guy. I love cooking steaks and all kinds of different ways that you can cook them and experimenting with that. So that's probably what I would pick. Hopefully, no vegans or vegetarians coming over if I'm making that meal, but that's probably the choice I'd make.
Okay, nice. Now, what is your preferred cook on a steak?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it changes all the time. Right now, it would probably be a ribeye, seared on the stove, and then basted in like a garlic, thyme, butter baste until it gets to temperature. Take it off, let it rest for 5 to 10 minutes, and dig in.
Nice. So you like it pretty rare.
Yeah, I do. I'm a medium rare guy, I guess, but that technique I described, you could use, all the way to a medium well. Just turn the temperature down a little bit so you don't overdo that sear, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I've had some rare steaks, and I guess I used to be a little afraid of that, but it can taste really good.
Oh yeah, yeah. You can get the what do they call it? Black and blue, I think, where they just very quickly and severely sear the outside, and pretty much it's completely raw on the inside. And yeah, to each their own for sure. I mean, if you don't like rare steaks and we're talking about raw slabs of beef, maybe not something you're getting into right now, but yeah, it could be good.
Right. Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for sharing. And
Yeah.
then finally, when it comes to your caffeinated beverage of choice, coffee, if that is your jam, but otherwise, what is it?
Yeah, so I'm not a soda guy. A long time ago, I kind of cut out soda from my life, and I'm scared if I let it back in, it'll take over. So for me, when I want to make myself like a treat at night, what I'll do is I'll take some carbonated soda water. There's a lot of brands. Not a big mineral water fan, but a lot of brands of carbonated water that are good, and add some lime on some ice, and that for me is the perfect carbonated drink.
All right. So you've cut out caffeine in general.
No, I'm a big coffee guy. The
Oh,
first thing
okay.
I do in the morning is drink a venti Starbucks iced coffee with 2 shots of espresso in it. So I definitely haven't cut out the caffeine, just
Okay.
the sugar. Yeah.
All right. Got it. So now when it comes to coffee, what is that your thing? Your jam is like just an iced espresso venti, or do you add any like creams or any kind of syrups or anything?
No creams or syrups or anything. I'll drink a cold brew. I'll drink shots over ice. I'll drink iced coffee. But in all those scenarios, it's just the beans. It's not cream or syrups or sweeteners or anything of that sort.
Okay. So you actually enjoy the coffee.
Yeah, I do. And I don't know if I could live without it. So
Yeah.
it's a
Yeah.
must at this point. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you're going to receive some Boss Blend coffee. So that'll be coming your way.
All right. I'm excited. I'll post
and
about it when I get it.
a mug to drink it out of. So
Okay. Yeah. Stay tuned for photos.
nice. Perfect. All right, Jacob, thanks for answering. All right, now we're going to get right into it with your questions or your topics of passion and interest. But also, I think it'd be good to just get to know you a little bit more. I don't know how many opportunities you've had to like really share about yourself and let people get to know you on a more personal level. But I'd love to understand like how you got into this industry and found this particular niche in serving. Like, what were you doing previously that led you to where you are?
Yeah. So in terms of my professional life, I was an example of one of those people that was in college getting a degree in something, kind of had a knack for technology and realized that I can get hired as a software engineer and make decent money without any, requirement for finishing school. So I left college, stopped pursuing a political science degree, taught myself to code, and started working as a software engineer. And this was before the era of boot camps and kind of these online courses they have now. So this was just dig into the internet and learn as fast as you can on your own. And I've never looked back since. I loved doing it. I loved software technology, building software. And really my professional career was focused primarily in that arena. Now, the companies that I worked for, through no really intention, but just happened to all be marketing companies. So I've worked at a few different companies, but always providing some sort of marketing service, whether it be a CRM, lead generation, automation, mostly in the B2B space, both small business and enterprise level technology. And toward the end of my career, kind of moved away from being a software engineer and more onto the product side. And if you're not in technology, that might not make a ton of sense, but just to say it out loud, software engineers or code writers and product people are different, departments that do different jobs. And for me, that was really great because I got this holistic view and understanding of how to build software end to end, not just writing the code of it, but also doing the discovery to figure out what solutions you should be building, what problems you're solving for your customers. And that taught me to really be obsessed with problems, not solutions, right? If we fall in love with the solution that we build, we lose sight of if it's actually solving the problem. So instead, fall in love with the problem that you're solving, and the solutions will kind of come to the surface on their own. And that's kind of my background in tech and in my professional career. Now, in terms of that transition to multifamily, one of the byproducts of being a software engineer is that I think technology can solve all problems. That's not always true, without a doubt, but it's my default opinion when I run into an issue. And I approach multifamily to be, frank and candid from the perspective of a pissed off renter, if you can get away with saying that. I was renting in my 20s, my early 20s, and it was a frustrating experience for me. And I felt like I could build something that would make it better for folks in my shoes on the renter side or the resident side. And that was kind of the primary genesis of Nurture Boss. Now, I always like to say, once I got educated on multifamily, I realized that on-site team members have some of the hardest jobs in the world. I can say that pretty confidently. And there's a lot that can be done to make their lives better and easier, not just the renters' lives better and easier. And, that sense has become an equal focus of Nurture Boss outside of the prospect and resident experience, but the on-site team operations and marketing leaders experience as well. But that's kind of how that transition from tech into multifamily worked for me.
Okay. And how did you get the exposure idea of going after this specific market? Was it like you yourself were a renter and you thought it was a bad experience?
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah, I was, the first line of code I wrote for Nurture Boss was in my apartment that I was living in, that, had caused me enough frustration to want to write the line of code. Right. And I continued to do that and work on it. My significant other has been in multifamily for almost a decade, and she helped me get kind of a pilot of Nurture Boss at some of her properties. And the way multifamily works is it's this many-to-many relationship where you have many property management companies working with many owners. So when you get exposure to a property management company, you can get exposed to multiple owners that company manages for, and it creates this flywheel effect. And what I thought was just going to be a quick beta test at a single property turned into NurtureBoss being spread across 3 different states at about 15 or 20 different properties within 90 days. So for me, that was kind of the indicator, like, hey, maybe we have something here and I should really double down on this and keep developing the product and building out the company.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
So now, and you guys have been around since
2020. Yeah, I got the bright idea to start a company in February of 2020, and then March happened. So that was interesting.
Oh my gosh. Wow, and you stuck with it.
So, yeah.
Honestly, that could have been a good and a bad time because they were leaning into technology at that very moment and needed solutions that would, rent without touching. So
yeah, I always say nobody wants to highlight that they benefited from COVID-19, right? But without a doubt, it helped accelerate the adoption of technology, which certainly had a measurable positive impact on companies like NurtureBoss.
For sure. And so, and if you don't mind asking or sharing about where are you guys at in your startup phase of life and number of units served and all that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I should have these numbers more top of head, especially because I was going on a show with you, but we're north of 100,000 units. We're at probably about half the states in the country. I need to check my numbers to verify that for fact. But many properties and spreading across the whole nation. We actually have a couple Canadian customers as well.
Nice. Yeah, we do too. Just a few, not a lot, but a few.
Yeah.
So it's a starting point. You can say you're international.
Yeah, absolutely. International NurtureBoss, without a doubt.
That's awesome. And then, if I remember correctly, you are VC backed to a degree, maybe not a crazy amount, but.
Yeah, we raised some money in the beginning from different angel funds as well as kind of traditional VC funds. My goal with NurtureBoss was always to raise some money to get us starting at a quicker pace than had we bootstrapped it ourselves, but to only do that in the beginning. And we've held true to that. And the goal is always to move away from VC funding and toward profitability. When a business is profitable, you kind of get to write your own destiny and write your own future, which is really important so that you can stay focused on serving your customers, not your investors, because better product gets built when you're focused on those customers. So we've been successful in accomplishing that mission, which is something I'm really proud of our company for doing. But certainly grateful to have had the VC backing in the beginning.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's great that you were able to have something to get going. It's you got to start somewhere. And our company is similar in regard to, we actually had no VC backing. It was all spurred out of a company that was doing a different type of work, but developing software and stuff for other people. And you're right. Like when you don't have a lot of investors and things like that, you don't have as much pressure, and you can go at a pace that's probably more manageable. As long as it's successful, right? As long as there's you're actually organically growing and you're actually profitable.
Yeah, you got it right, without a doubt.
Yeah. So that it's an interesting world to be in, technology, because I was new to it, and you see all these companies that seem big, but it's mostly almost like they just got this injection of money and they can spend a lot of marketing dollars, and you're like, the perception is a little off, because then you learn they only have like X number of units or whatever, and you're like, oh, interesting. You would have thought differently.
Yeah, I think that, not to put on a course on tech startups and VC funding, but there's a lot of ways to start a business. And if you're in the tech space, it's very common to raise money and operate at a deficit for many years while you continue to grow the business. And there is nothing wrong with that at all. If your business background is starting a brick and mortar, coffee shop or clothing store, you couldn't imagine operating at a deficit for any length of time, let alone years. But it
Right.
is normal, and it's not an indicator of an unhealthy business to do that in the tech world, but it is a decision on a strategy to take that not everyone
Sure.
does. And a lot of folks do a blend of that, like NurtureBoss.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. There is, and it's just interesting because at the end of the day, it's because banks won't lend to an idea.
Right.
And so, like, where somebody would go and get a loan in debt, you really can't do that in software. So that's really the reason, like, otherwise people would probably just go like the normal route of starting a business, get a business loan and get going.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, it's hard to sell ideas.
Yeah, it is indeed. It is indeed. Any founder will tell you that it's incredibly hard, but it's doable.
Yeah. You just have to sell the idea to a investor or something, somebody that better understands your market, maybe.
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely.
All right. Well, thanks for sharing about that. And kind of tied, obviously, to the idea of, technology and some of the things that you even probably help with NurtureBoss. One of the things that you mentioned being something you're very interested in playing with is like blurring the line between marketing and operations, which is really, and it's to some degree kind of what you're doing, right, with your product.
Yeah, I mean, that's the hope. I think, you said it in the intro that at the end of the day, getting leases is incredibly important. I think what we saw last year and we'll continue to see this year is that retaining leases is also incredibly important, right? And marketing is uniquely positioned to be better at using data to make decisions, understanding what people want and are interested in. And they do this to drive demand and create demand, which ultimately leads to generating leads, and then hopefully plays somewhat of a role in nurturing those leads to become a lease. Well, we could think of our residents as leads as well, right? We need to get those residents to renew their leases so we can retain their business. And as we've seen kind of a slowdown in rent increases, it's become more of a priority for a lot of the operators and owners in the space. Now, when I say blur the line between marketing and operations, that's partly what I'm talking about, resident retention. But also, in general, I think there's huge opportunity to better serve our customers in the multifamily space, which is prospective residents and existing residents, by leveraging a hybrid approach of using humans, AI, using data, and using marketing and operations expertise to create a true end-to-end path of success from the moment a prospective renter becomes aware of your community all the way up until they renew their lease 15 months later or whatever the case may be. So it's a big topic that I'd love to dive into and we could spend a lot of time talking about, but that's my attempt to try to summarize it for you if I can get away with that.
Yeah, sure. I mean, we can get into it a little bit. So when it comes to the marketing and operations, like blurring those lines, where do you see your product specifically and maybe products in general when it comes to like, okay, we helped get people in here. Are you trying to make there be more of a continuation of NurtureBoss into the lived experience for a resident too?
Yeah, great question. So I'd say half of our platform is actually dedicated toward the resident experience. So creating a delightful experience from day zero for new residents is really critical at NurtureBoss and the services that we provide to our customers. That's going to be things like facilitating the move-in process with automation and information so that everybody feels like they have the tools at their fingertips to be successful on that first day of move-in. It's going to be continuing to communicate and ensure a positive experience through those first 90 days. That ultimately is going to help boost online reputation by capturing more positive reviews. It will also help drive resident referrals as friends tell their friends about this great place that they live. Throughout the resident lifecycle, there's things like reminding folks to pay rent, as well as notifying folks when they're overdue on rent. We get busy. Sometimes we just forget things if we don't have auto payments turned on. A simple reminder not only helps decrease delinquencies and increase the amount of money in your operating account. But it's also appreciated by the residents to say, oh, shoot, thanks for reminding me. I almost forgot. They don't want late fees, right? They just need that little bump to help get that done on time. And then all the way through to facilitating the renewal process, staying in touch with residents as they're approaching the renewal date, making sure they're aware of their options, letting them know, that, hey, you put in your notice, you don't have to move out. You can transfer to a new unit. We have these other great units that match, what you're in now that you may like. This one's farther from the pool. This one's closer to the pool, whatever the case may be. So automating and facilitating a great resident experience is definitely an example of what we mean when we say blurring the lines. I will say, though, just not to go on a tangent, but a more easy to grasp example, I think, of blurring those lines. Operations has a lot of great data that they use to understand what's coming in the future. An example is they may understand that their available to rent number is going to go up in March because they have 15 residents that have put in notice, right? And these units are going to be vacant. Well, marketing can use this data. If marketing knows there's a large vacancy increase coming in 90 days, they can start changing their tactics now so they can build a bench of prospective renters or leads so that when that vacancy hits in March, our vacancy loss can be as low as possible because we're going to fill those units quickly because we've built a bench of prospective renters. So hopefully that made sense, but I think that's a really good data example of how operations and marketing can share data and work together to blur those lines so that we can see the best results in terms of the ultimate number NOI that we're all looking at.
Right. No, that's good. And what's your main mechanism for doing all this? Is it text messaging, or what do you lean on for that?
Yeah, so our main mechanism in terms of the channel of communication for Nurture Boss is going to be text messaging as well as emails. But I would change that a little bit to say the main mechanism in truth that we use is something called hyper-personalization. And for Nurture Boss, what we mean by that is we use our AI as well as all the data that we get through our integrations to get a really great understanding of what matters most to each individual, whether they be a prospect or a resident. And we ensure the content that we send them is relevant to what they care about so that it resonates and it's effective in driving them through the lead to lease or lease to renewal lifecycle. A really easy example is if I know that Evan is going to bring his dog with him, then I'm going to send Evan information about the bark park and the pet policy because that's going to strike home with him and that's going to resonate with him. That's a really basic example, but it's sufficient, I think, in kind of explaining the nuance. But there are dozens of examples of the way that works. So the true mechanism that helps drive everything I'm talking about at Nurture Boss is hyper-personalization.
Interesting. So do you do that through integrating with the property management software primarily?
Primarily, yes. That is the source of truth where we get all of our data from. But throughout the journey, based on how the prospective renter or the resident interacts with content that we send them, questions that they may ask, things that they might say, this helps to build their profile. So over time, we learn more and more about their interests, their wants, their needs.
Okay, interesting. So there's a profile being built now. Does like a manager have to import, fill out forms, or how's the data kind of populated?
Yeah, so it's coming from all the different sources that we have access to. So, for example, if you go to an internet listing service like Zumper and you start your apartment search, Zumper is really great at asking you a ton of questions, right? They want to know how many bedrooms you want. They want to know what things in the local area you care about. They want to know if you're bringing pets. Now, they're able to insert this information automatically into the property management software. So we then are able to pull it out and see it ourselves. So partnerships that we've built with different ILSs, AI services, PMSs, this allows us to have access to that data, as well as our own internal data that we're capturing throughout the lead nurture process.
Interesting. Okay. Huh. And then so you're making this profile of the person. They're now a persona. And then you're building content, or the manager, I would say, probably at the start. They're like, for all the dog people, here's the documents and things they might be interested in here locally and here specifically as it pertains to various personas, probably.
Yeah, you're exactly right. The cool thing though is that we're actually able to do a lot of this without the help of the on-site team, the manager, or the operations team at all. There's so much information on the ILSs through the feeds and the integrations through the property website that we're able to build out pretty robust profiles for different individuals without the apartment itself having to lift a finger, which has been pretty cool.
Interesting. Yeah, that's cool. Like, and I can see where, you're trying to make it feel like a human touch using AI, making it personal, not so robotic, making somebody feel like, okay, they're paying attention to what I care about when it comes to living here. And when it comes time to renew lease, tackling. And do you do you send messages throughout their lease, like hopeful things, like here's something you might be interested in, this type of thing, or how does it?
Yeah, absolutely. Throughout the entire lease journey, Nurture Boss is sending messages to that now resident. Now, some of them are more targeted and specific. I mentioned delinquency notices or the lease renewal reminders. Those are more obvious and why we'd be sending and what that content would be. But yes, there's other messages like popular neighborhood attractions, whether it be a restaurant or a mall or whatever that's in the area. We want to let new residents know about those things. Like, hey, you're in this area now. Here are some things that folks in the area love to do. There's also more to the point things like an event invitation or RSVP if the on-site team is putting on a resident event. So there are kind of endless scenarios in which communication to a resident makes a ton of sense, and there's a large number of those that Nurture Boss is automating on behalf of the properties.
Cool, man. The more you talk, the more I'm like, gosh, we need to work together.
Yeah, let's do it. I think that there's, regardless if you're using Nurture Boss or not, most properties have this data that I'm talking about. Apartments have been sitting on a gold mine of first-party data for many, many years. And my hope is that one of the trends we see in 2024 is apartments becoming more savvy to the fact that they have access to this data and they start leveraging it to create targeted campaigns, through Nurture Boss, hopefully. But if not, that's fine too. Just use the data. You have it. You're sitting on it. It can help you save a ton of money and make more money, but most importantly, create a great experience for your residents and your prospective renters. So I'm hoping that's a trend that we see kind of take hold in 2024.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks for kind of diving into that. And the idea of marketing versus operations, or kind of not even versus, it's more like, how do we bring them closer together?
Exactly.
And I really like kind of that perspective, because so many of the softwares for, I think, the apartment industry really lean into, again, the lease portion of the needs and things that need to be fixed, quote unquote, or accelerated or whatever it is. And not always is it that same company carries into the resident experience living there. And so it's kind of like, it then amplifies the need for more software versus kind of like carrying through and having an experience that helps them the whole time they're there.
Yeah. And I think as a business owner, it's always nice to have less invoices to pay, less customer success teams to work with, less emails to answer. So when you can find a product that spans more of that divide or that gap, it's just very convenient as well, which is worth mentioning.
Well, and it's a better experience for the customer or the resident, right? Like you're not going from this experience from like your standpoint of getting messages and things, and then, oh, here comes another company doing similar stuff, but now it's a little different and they're getting messages. So it's like, it's seamless, right? So I can see there being a great benefit in a lot of ways for a lot of different companies, even ours. Like, we play in both worlds in the sense of managing space. And so if you're a resident or a guest or whatever, everybody's using the space. So you have the opportunity to increase the efficiencies in all realms. So I think of, using software in that way makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I agree.
Cool, man. All right. Well, When it comes to the AI versus human idea, we kind of touched on it a little bit. Is there anything else you wanted to add to that particular topic?
I would just add that, AI has become more widely available to
Yeah.
developers in the last year. AI has certainly evolved and become better, but more importantly, it's gone viral, meaning
Mm.
ChatGPT, the Google competitor, the Microsoft competitor, and Bing. These are AI things that have gone viral, which means they've become widely available to developers. So the point of all this is that once upon a time, to have an effective, um, efficient, good at what you do AI product, you had to dedicate years of time and development into honing, crafting, and fine tuning your AI. These days, a company can spring up and can create a competitive product in a period of weeks or months. Now, they're still fine tuning and honing to do, without a doubt. But what that means is we're going to see more and more AI products pop up in the market because it is easier to build them. So the reason I bring this up is I think it's really important to the purchasers of software out there, for us property management companies or owners, to start putting in the time to become educated on AI, the different types of it. How do you measure if it's successful or not? How do you monitor what it's up to behind closed doors, so that we can make intelligent decisions on who we partner with? Because we will see more and more choices of those partnerships popping up in the next 6 to 18 months.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I think one thing that's happened is adoption of AI, or the idea of AI, by the consumer. Obviously, there's people on both sides of the fence still, but I think, it's gotten to a point, adoption by everyday people has become pretty well not saturated, well, maybe saturated.
Yeah, I think
Um,
so.
like, people are more okay with it, whereas
Hmm.
probably a couple years ago they would have been terrified.
Hmm.
The idea of AI everywhere. But there's so many people that are just diving in now. So
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I think, and we could spend time on this or not. Obviously, like you said before, it's your show, so you tell me. But there's, we're not in a spot yet where AI can run the show in multifamily, maybe other areas. But for now, in my opinion, at least for the rest of 2024, somebody who is effectively leveraging AI is going to be blending human oversight and a human component into that AI. So I think, figuring out what that right blend is for you in your properties is also important, and making sure the software provider that you're working with has the ability to kind of dial up or dial down the amount of work the AI is doing, so that you
mhm.
can make sure you have that human component to your comfort level, and also to the level of success at your property. So that's something that I think people should start thinking about as well. Is, hey, do I have the dials that I need to turn this AI up or down, so that my on-site team can continue to do what they're great at, which is build human relationships?
Yeah. And I mean, we got to remember, it's still technology, and it doesn't have the ability to make judgments like a human
Mhm.
can, in the sense of, it's not perfect. It's not like, there's nuance to being human, right? And technology can't necessarily master all that. Well, maybe yet. We'll see.
Yeah.
But decision making, right? Like, you still have to watch it, because it might make a bad decision. Like, you don't want it to just run rampant and you never look at it, right? There
Yeah.
still
The
needs to be humans.
Yeah, the biggest thing that AI can't do, and when it can do, it'll change the world truly, is understand context, a callback, right? So, like right now, I could say, well, you know me, I love steak, right? And you know what I'm talking about because we talked about it, 37 minutes ago. If I said that to AI right now, it would have no idea what I'm talking about. It can't call back this conversation we had earlier and put what I just said into context of what I'm saying now, right? This is one of the many missing pieces of AI. That when that is able to happen, then this conversation will be very different, right? But we're not there yet.
Yeah, and that'll freak me out.
Yeah.
when you can absolutely not tell it's not human. That's where
yeah, the
that's where
Turing
it gets
test, they
crazy.
call that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's some examples of things where an example of, was it Fantasia, the Mickey Mouse, um, the spell of the broom doing the same task over and over, getting water. That's kind of
Mhm.
like AI. Like, you can tell it to do that and it do it really well, but if there's a certain mechanism that should shut it off, it may not work, and then it'll just keep going, right? It's kind
Right.
of like, and then it almost becomes more like cancer, right? Like, where a cell isn't being shut off, right? Like,
Yeah.
then you have the opposite problem.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, hopefully that's not something we have to deal with in any of our solutions or
Yeah,
the properties leveraging them. But yeah,
yeah,
your point is valid for sure.
yeah, yeah. People still matter.
For now.
Yeah, for now, till it gets. I mean, things are. I know AI was already around, like, pre a year ago when it just went. But how crazy fast it's been growing, man! It's gonna be interesting to see what the next couple years hold. I will say that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think so. I think that, I'm not, in AI expert by any means. I'm a software engineer that has developed AI products, and I know maybe more than the average bear, but I'm certainly not an expert. We have people at NurtureBoss that fill those shoes that aren't me. But what I'll say is that the viral expansion of AI is definitely happened quicker than the growth of AI. AI has been pretty incredible for quite some time. And it has just become more public and more accessible to kind of the layman developer in recent years. But it's certainly, every day it evolves and it gets better. And things like this tend to get exponentially better. So it'll be
Yeah,
very interesting to have this conversation 12 months from now and see where things are at.
yeah, yeah. I'll probably be talking to a fake you, but
Yeah, yeah,
I won't even know.
yeah,
They took you over. Oh,
yeah,
here comes Terminator. Just kidding.
yeah, yeah.
um, and then just decision making, again, something you touched on earlier, but at the end of the day, it's using data to make decisions that really help drive NOI and profitability and adding value to a community. So, when it comes to the lead to lease portion of the marketing game, when it comes to this particular industry, what is it that you are seeing when it comes to that and making decisions, and how you can provide data?
Yeah, I think we talked a little bit earlier about that first party data, that mountain, that gold mine of data that properties are sitting on, right? And I think that this is something the rest of the business world has maybe accelerated a little more quickly than multifamily has, and it's an opportunity for multifamily to benefit from that because we don't have to cut our teeth on new things. We can look at what other industries have already tried and failed and succeeded on and just take the successes and run with them. But data-driven decision-making, especially in the marketing world, can be complicated, but is critical. A really easy example of that is, let's say I need more leases. Well, usually what an apartment's going to do today is you're going to say, well, what lead source is giving me the most leases? And I'm going to put more money into getting more leads from that lead source. That's an example of what we would call first touch attribution in the marketing world. Where was the first touch of these successful conversions? And I'm going to invest more in that first touch. That's not necessarily wrong, but it's kind of half of the picture or less than half of the picture. There are other models. A good example would be multi-touch attribution. And what this says is not where did the lead come from, but also what happened along the way. What patterns can I recognize of what happened between when the lead was generated and when the lease was signed that lead to success? Maybe I notice that there's 2 phone calls that occur from the on-site team to the prospect. Maybe I notice that the application comes within 24 hours of the tour being completed. Maybe I notice that they got 5 emails every 24 hours, and that helped lead to the conversion, right? There's more to it than where the lead came from. So by starting to explore this idea of multi-touch attribution, by starting to explore diving deeper into what happened throughout the lead to lease journey, not just at the beginning or at the end, we get to get a more holistic picture of what's working and what's not. And in a more educated way, we can invest more time and money into those things that are working, and divest from those things that are not working. So that's one example of that data informed decision making or data driven decision making. But really, I think in general, for me, the message is let's use that data that we're sitting on. Let's get a holistic picture of what's going on so we can make smart choices about what to do next.
Nice. And I'm guessing, and I didn't really think about this, but you have a CRM essentially built into your system, I'm assuming?
So not really. We don't replace our customers' CRM.
Okay.
We think folks that focus solely on being a CRM are the ones who build good CRMs. What we do is we have really robust integrations with those CRMs so that we're both pushing data back into the CRM as well as pulling data out. So it's a truly seamless integration.
Okay, cool. So I was gonna go in the route of so are you becoming kind of like a HubSpot of multifamily, or?
Yeah. So we think that the CRMs today should become the HubSpots of multifamily, right? We think, or said differently, we find ourselves generating and supplying our customers with a lot of supplemental reporting. There's not a lot of great multi-touch attribution reporting or other journey data of the journey reporting that you can pull out. So we find ourselves creating a lot of that for our customers, which we're of course are happy to do. But the more players in the space that start to buy into this idea of, hey, there's more things happening between when a lead's generated and when a lease is signed that we're not reporting on, the better it's going to be for everybody.
Yeah. And then you add in, when someday this happens, the use of space and living there, and what the value of when you develop a community, and what do people actually use and care about, right? They're using this space because we're actually keeping track of it versus we just build it because it's a thing that people supposedly want, but do they really?
Yeah. So using the data from Community Boss, maybe you could say, hey, we noticed that 85% of residents that renew are using 2 or more community spaces a month, right? I made that up, but that kind of data matters, right? Because then you say, oh, shoot, if we promote our community spaces, more aggressively or more frequently, we could then increase our renewals. That's important data,
Yeah. And things like, what, 5% of your residents have 50% of your guest parking usage,
right?
Or something like that.
Right. Yeah. Those are not surprising, actually, I will say, that data, but yeah.
Yeah. There's social butterflies,
Yeah. Popular folks living at your property. That's all popular folks.
Yeah, that's true. Well, Jacob, thank you for touching on that. And the more I talk to people around the subject of AI, the more I'm become a little more comfortable. Beginning of 2023, when things really went gangbusters, I was like, okay, well, it's the beginning of the end.
Yeah. Here we go. This is how it starts.
Yeah.
Start building the bunker.
Yeah. And maybe I still should. I don't know.
Yeah. But yeah, that's a tough decision you'll have to make yourself.
Just it's a backup plan, just in case.
Yeah, absolutely.
But thank you so much for jumping on, being our first guest of 2024.
Yeah, honored to be here.
So good to have another boss in the house, squared, and just kicking it off right with a great guest today in you, Jacob. So thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was a blast. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. And just like Jacob jumped in and showed why he's a boss and has boss things to share, I want you to jump in and be a guest on my show. So if you're interested, you want to share what you're passionate about, what you're a leader in, you don't have to be the boss of the company. You don't have to be having a big title. You can jump in, share what you have to offer, and make this industry better. So reach out to me and let's make it happen. Thanks everybody for watching, and see you next week.